This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Welcome. Great to have you with us. Hope you had a wonderful holiday weekend. And hopefully you remember what the weekend was, why we have Memorial Day. People who made the ultimate sacrifice so that we can live the lives that we live. And the next holiday weekend, the primary one. I mean, I know Juneteenth is coming up. But the 4th of July, now that's a party. That is a party. And we're all going out to the Suits place. What do you think?
I am here. I was trying to figure out why everything is so ridiculously loud. Actually, I work most of the weekend except for yesterday. But yeah, yesterday was good. My 3-day weekend is yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
We're working late.
How about I don't work 8 hours today? How's that?
Oh, okay.
There's worse things in the world.
I understand. I mean, that's why, like, you know what my brother said at the end of the show on Friday? We talked about retirement. Remember what he said?
Yes.
And I thought that was, I understand exactly what he's talking about. But the bummer to me is that he would think that way. And what he said was, for those who did not hear at the end of the show, I mean, he says, oh, God, I got to retire. He's talking about doing jobs. Right? It's something he's complained about before. Okay, I got it. And I said, well, why don't you just retire? He goes, well, I'm really concerned about what my life would be like if I woke up every day and didn't have some place to go. And there are a lot of people who feel that way. And, which I understand. I mean, you have a lot of places to go.
I had an aunt that worked a state job, so she retired like at 60 instead of 65, and she felt the same way. And what she ended up doing is her father ended up being in a nursing home, and she ended up being a volunteer activities director at the nursing home, and she ended up liking to go out there 2 or 3 times a week and volunteering, doing crafts and things like that. You don't think you're going to find something, but you do find something, you know? I can understand the unknown, of working for 40, 45 years, and then, you know, you don't have a place to go, so it kind of feels like you're rudderless, I would think.
Yeah. Look, I used to work, I don't know, 70, 80 hours a week on a regular basis. And the reason I worked that many hours was because of the various jobs I had. The running joke was the number of 1099s I had. I was doing football, I was doing basketball, I was doing the Spikes. Now, this is before I did this radio show. So I had another radio show I was doing. I did a segment for a TV station in Johnstown every week. I did a show once a week for another TV station in State College. And like there was a lot of these things, speeches and things like that. And I would probably, talk shows. I was doing the Coaches Show. And I was probably working 70 to 80 hours a week on a regular basis. And I didn't think too much about it. It wasn't something I got tired with. But now at this stage of my life, I'm not working 70 or 80 hours a week. I have to admit, something nice about it.
You're a much better golfer now, aren't you?
Oh, boy. I actually did something the other day. I've done it before. And I eagled a holding yesterday. So I went out yesterday. And I'm playing the back nine of the right course. I hit a drive. It's decent enough. It was down the middle. I'm in the corner. I'm about 120 yards out. It was a dead left. Right? So I took out. What's he doing? I hear it. We usually, what's he doing?
Oh no, actually, I'm getting interference. I was turning up the one speaker to make sure it wasn't coming over the speaker. You were hearing yourself, actually.
So I took out a gap wedge. I hit the gap wedge onto the green. Right? I hit it. I thought, that's not bad, right? I'm looking at the flag. I'm thinking, okay. And the ball's rolling, and then the ball disappears. I'm like, I kind of thought it rolled maybe past the hole, maybe 7 or 8 feet, and it's an elevated green, so that's So I walked up, and I don't see the ball. Like, what the heck happened here? What the heck happened here? And I'm sitting there. And I'm walking, and I go to the back because I saw it roll, and I thought, okay, maybe it went off the back of the green. I guess I hit it further than I thought I did. All right? I go to the back of the green, nothing. I knew I didn't hit it left, so I looked to the right, and I looked at that part. I don't mean the green. I'm talking about the rough. I'm thinking, I wonder if it went over here. Then I'm standing there off to the side, and I thought, well, maybe, what the heck? Let's just look in the hole. Right? Let's just look in the holes. Just see what's going on here. And it's where the ball was. Mm-hmm. Like, okay.
Take a drop.
yeah, take a drop. Take a drop, chip. I don't think so. that ain't going to happen. We are not doing that. There will be no drop for me. So, yeah, ended up with an Eagle 2. Now I know what Wetzel feels like.
I'm surprised we didn't take the day off today now then, too.
Who, Wetzel?
No, you.
Oh, me? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Keep it going.
Yeah, keep rolling here. Yeah, why not? I got the Coaches versus Cancer tournament later in the week. So I've got to do that. But, yeah, I was like, oh. Again, it was one of those like, let's see, where the heck is that? You know what I mean? Where is that thing? I mean, I happened to be one other time. Cause, I saw the ball disappear. I saw it disappear. But I thought it disappeared because it went a little further back and maybe down the ridge. That's why I thought it disappeared. Like, okay. All right. Now so, yeah. And, yeah, it happened to be one other time. It was also a gap wedge. I was playing the par 5 18th on glue course, and he hit a gap wedge. And again, it was elevated, so pin was on the left-hand side. I couldn't find it. And finally, I was like, okay, where the heck did this thing go? And, like, I looked in the hole and went, oh, okay. That works. All right. So much for my adventures on the course.
At least it was a good adventure.
Oh, was it good? Oh, no. In fact, the whole thing was good yesterday.
Hmm?
There really isn't a shot I didn't like all day. I only played 9 holes. So, yeah.
George did. Always leave him wanting more.
Yeah. That's why you always end up parring the last hole. You always par the last hole. You're like, oh, great. The college football playoff. Did you hear what the proposal is?
I did.
The proposal is this. It's Tony Petitti that's driving this, the Big Ten commissioner. And what he wants to do is he wants it to be 1 through 16. So everybody seems to be focused on 16. I got it. Okay. Which, you and I have talked about that's going to be, in the end, probably the way they're going to do this. But instead of having one playing 16, have you heard this part? Instead of one playing 16 and 2 playing 15 and so forth, all the way up to 8 playing 9, you know what the proposal is? He put on the table that 13 would play 16, 14 would play 15. The 2 winners then advance. 1 and 2 get byes, and in the full weekend of playoff football, you would have 6 games played, 3 on a Friday and 3 on a Saturday, to get it down to 8.
I also saw they want to play Army-Navy Saturday.
Well, yeah, I know they want to play Army-Navy Saturday. That part I did know. Oh, there we go.
And it looked like there were 4 automatic qualifiers for the SEC and the Big Ten each.
Yeah, 4 each, but that's not how Petitti wants to do the Big Ten, though. Okay, I mean, this stuff's wild. It's wild. Okay, so let me give you the next wild part of this. Okay, so the next wild part of this is that Petitti wants the first 2 in the Big Ten to be automatic, but he wants 3 to play 6 and 4 to play 5 to determine spots 3 and 4.
I would assume that would replace the conference championship game.
Yes, you are correct, sir. You are correct, sir. And I'm like, really? Really?
Didn't you say he's a TV guy?
He is a TV guy.
That sounds like made for TV games.
You are correct, sir. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
okay, so anytime that you criticize a proposal, which we are in the process, or at least I'm in the process of doing, Todd just does it in a classier way. To me, you need to not just say, I think that's not how I do it. What is your solution? And as you know, on this show, we talk about ideas and potential solutions all the time. Because, again, I think it is very important to not just criticize something. I think it's very important to then tell everybody, well, okay, well, because we have too much of that in a lot of different areas, sports, news, whatever it may be, where they criticize it, right, but they don't tell you how they'd fix it. Well, at that point, you've lost me. I mean, I'm done. I don't need to hear from you anymore if you're not going to tell me how you're going to fix it. Like, what's your idea? I can go along with the 1 through 3 being automatic, and I can go along with 4 versus 5 playing in the championship game or playing in the play-in game. That I can go along with. That I can go along with. Having 2 of them, because the number 60 would have been 8-4 Iowa. You're telling me 8-4 Iowa deserves the potential of being in a playoff? I'm talking about in 2024. I'm not talking about moving forward. I mean, to me that doesn't sit well with me. Now 4 versus 5, okay.
I wonder if it's a way to say that they're giving out more opportunities without, giving those opportunities to the group of 5 schools.
Yeah, no, because this would be one of the 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten.
I guess I'm saying, does the Big Ten and the SEC need 4 automatic qualifiers?
Well, right now, they're the ones talking about it. Now, Petitti's pushing believe it or not, I think people think it's Greg Sankey that is the one pushing it. The reality is it's actually Petitti that's pushed it more than Sankey, but Sankey also hasn't. Sankey's done more. From what I understand, Greg Sankey's done more listening than pontificating.
And it also seems they've had more access to Greg Sankey lately than they've had to Tony Petitti, so he's kind of been the face of this.
Well, because the SEC just had their coaches meetings.
Yeah.
And because they just had the coaches meetings, he did a press conference. And in the press conference, he said the same thing essentially I said just now, which was quite, he said, look, he says, stop telling me go to the game. He says, tell me what your idea is. And he's right. And he's right, by the way.
This one yesterday kind of seems to have gotten people up in arms. I'm not sure, like the proposals came out like Thursday or Friday, right? Something like that. And I'm not sure people realized exactly what they were talking about or exactly what it meant. And I think when he was speaking yesterday, I think it dawned on people. There was some senators upset after that meeting. There was some reporters upset about that meeting after that meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people feel like the SEC and Big Ten are taking over the college football playoff and not letting anybody else in, which, we've discussed ad nauseum about, what all the teams are watching. And I just think I think we're in the same boat we are last year. We're talking a lot about this stuff. We're talking a lot about the off the field stuff. And then once the games kick off, it's not going to matter as much as it does now.
Yeah, I think what the power play of 4 automatic qualifiers means to some people is that did you earn your way in? But there's also another reality too. What is the road to get to the top 4 in the Big Ten and the SEC, and what's the road that would be to be in the top 4 in the ACC and the Big 12? In other words, who has the tougher conference schedules?
What we see as them being forward-thinking, the Big Ten and the SEC and the expansion, I think other people see as taking over the sport.
Right, money grubbing.
Which is a symptom, which leads us to this point here.
Yes.
About why is it's much harder to be the 4th team in those 2 conferences.
It's a money grab power play.
Yes.
By the 2 most powerful conferences. Yet the reality is right? Sankey was saying, hey, look, I'd have stuck with 4. He said, would have had 2 of the 4 anyway. And guess what? If you just went with 4 last year, what would the conference breakdown be if they just went with 4 last year?
Probably 2 SEC, a Big Ten, and Notre Dame.
Nope. It would have been 2 SEC, 2 Big Ten. It would have been Georgia, Texas as the 2 and 3 seeds. Oregon and Penn State would have been the 1 and 4 seeds. Penn State finished 4th last year. They were the 6th seed, and Texas was the 5th seed because of the conference champions. The reality is Texas was 3rd and Penn State was 4th. So you would have had 2 SEC, 2 Big Tens, and no Ohio State.
I would say if it's only 4 teams last year, that Penn State probably doesn't get a break for that Ohio 10 loss. I think the Ohio State loss knocks them out.
No, it would. No, I'm telling you, no, Todd, the Final 4 happened to be when they put the 4 out there, but then everybody got bumped back. Because remember, Ohio State was an 8 seed.
Oh, no, I understand what you're saying.
Right,
I'm saying I think they get penalized more for that Ohio State loss in a 4-team field than they would have in the 12-team field last year.
With 1 loss to Notre Dame's 1 loss to Northern Illinois, nope, Penn State would have been in front of them. Penn State's losses to Ohio State, because remember, they only lost 1 game.
I know.
Right? And Northern Illinois would have been Notre Dame's loss. That's actually easy. And not only that, the Notre Dame loss was not only to Illinois, but at home.
Game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is, because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection, imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now, from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV, yes, Medicare products. They do everything they can to make sure you're fully insured, but also do everything they can to save you money. It is all at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. We were talking about the college football playoff before and what the proposal is. Like, okay, it's interesting, very interesting, but it doesn't mean I completely agree with it. Look, I also think that if you're good enough, and Todd, the reason that Tony Petitti is arguing hard for 4 automatic bids and that the SEC would go along with it is quite simply this. He wants to set up that 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, and you can't do that if it's a wide open field, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. You can't do that playoff scenario like we just talked about if you're not sure how many bids you're going to get.
I would say the 4th best team in the Big Ten or the SEC probably has a legitimate shot at the national title.
I agree with you. I agree with that completely. I think you're spot on there.
I mean, they'll probably be good enough to get hot. They would be good enough to get hot enough to win it.
Yeah.
To get on a run like Notre Dame did. They might not be as talented as maybe Ohio State is,
Right.
you know, but
Yeah.
But again, are we? I just wonder if what ends up happening is if we do end up with even larger super conferences,
Right.
because some of those ACC schools and some of those Big 12 schools are going to want the same shot that those Big 10 schools got. And if you're not going to get it in your conference, what's the next thing you do? Go to the conference that's getting those shots.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be 10, with the grant of rights stuff, it might be 10, 12 years for some of these schools. But again, I if this is the way we're going, I wonder if we end up with super leagues.
I hope not.
I hope not either.
I think it's impossible to manage.
Or do we end up with another level of football where some of these schools that just don't want to compete to this level play, for lack of a better way to put it, do we get a stronger FCS or a different version of FCS in 10 or 12 years?
Yeah.
Not everybody is going to survive an arms race. And those that don't survive an arms race, what do they do?
Yeah. That is true. Look, I just think that, number one, I'm not going to I will never advocate for a super league. And I don't think the fans would like it either. Because remember, okay, let's do a super league. Let's put 24 schools in a super league. Okay? We could talk about all the competition to fight to get to the top and get into the Final Four of the Super League. Correct?
Correct.
But somebody also has to finish 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Oh. That's an issue. In other words, let's take Florida State. Florida State wants to be a part of an expanded SEC or an expanded Big Ten. Florida State's made it apparent to everybody that's what they would like to do. If Florida State just went through last year and went 2-10. Okay. Right? Just went 2-10. And that's one of the reasons why I was not in favor of dropping divisions. I was not in favor of dropping divisions in the Big Ten or the SEC. Because, as I said to my colleagues who broadcast games, and this was a year ago when we were talking about this, I said, is finishing 8th good? Now, in basketball it is. If you finish 8th in the Big Ten, I think your chances of getting into the NCAA tournament are probably 70-30 if you finish 8th, because they have a 68-team field, right, with 37 at-large bids. If you finish 8th, that's fine. If you finish 8th in football, is that good? Now, the best answer I got, I think it was Dave Ennett of Northwestern. I thought he and Matt LePay of Wisconsin both came up with the same answer. And they both said, well, it depends on where you were the year before. If you're a team that was kind of down and out and you were like 4-8, now suddenly, hey, you're able to resurrect yourself and you end up being 7-5, you make a 3-game improvement. Yeah, 8th is better. And I understood that perspective. That made sense to me. But the reality is, on the national scene, 8th is 8th. And it's not good. And somebody's going to have to finish 8th in the Super League. Somebody's going to have to finish 21st in the Super League, too.
Well, I mean, you can see what happens when you finish in the in the bottom 3 in a big league. Exactly with Penn State basketball. I think that's why people were questioning what's going on and not giving probably the vocal minority, not giving Mike the chance that he probably deserves after just one full season.
Yeah, and again, that's why with divisions, now it used to be 14 schools. But like you'd finish 5th in your division. Well, that sounds better than finishing. I mean, just perception-wise, it sounds better than finishing 14th. Right?
Yes.
I mean, just on the perception part of it. And that's one of the reasons why I was not in favor of shelving divisions, especially when you would have added into the West USC, you would have added into the West Oregon. Like, I think it would have changed the dynamics of the conference. But somebody thought 1 through 18 was better. Okay, so be it.
If you go divisions, wouldn't that make travel at least a touch easier?
Yeah, because it would be a touch easier for the West Coast teams.
Yeah.
Now, again, do I agree with what the Big Ten did by scheduling everybody home and away over a 5-year span? I do agree with that. I do, because I think that's a conference. And in basketball, you do play everybody 3 home and aways and 14 one plays. That is a conference.
And it's almost, June? We still haven't gotten the house rolling yet either?
No, I don't know what's holding this up. I don't know. Now, I think that what's going to happen is, regardless, now we're still, 5 weeks away from from July 1st? So we're 5 weeks away from July 1st. I think July 1st I think it's 5 weeks from today, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's a Tuesday, right?
Kind of the wild part about it is it sounds like even if there isn't a house settlement by then, these guys are just going to start paying.
Well, that's my point. It's still they're going to implement
the
plan and just assume that that's going to be the plan.
It's just a chance to do the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not funny.
So that's where we are with that. I mean, I'm like you. I thought in April this would be settled. I was not right about that. I didn't think it would be settled April 7th. I thought by the end of April, after there was a little back and forth and so forth, I thought it would be settled. Nope. Yannick Conan Niederhauser, this is the decision week for him. It's either he'll announce what he's doing either tomorrow or Thursday. Thursday's the deadline. I believe. That's why you're seeing a bunch of guys declare today. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I was going to say I saw the UAB guy that came to Michigan said he's coming to Michigan instead of staying in the draft.
Right. So I mean, things like that are happening right now. I mean, Condon from Florida pulled out on the draft, going back to Florida. And then you were talking about Yaxel Lendeborg.
Yes.
He's the one that decided. He was thought to be a first-round pick. They had him at 26. Okay, and he's going to go to Michigan. Now, Yannick in the latest big board, and here's Yannick's timeline. Yannick has one more series of NBA workouts today. One more. So today's the last day of workouts for him. In all likelihood, I think he'll make his decision tomorrow. And then we'll see what that is. Right now on the, quote, big board, he's 47. 47's the gray area. Like, I couldn't predict to you in a million years what a player would do in that spot. Because I think the one thing you want to avoid if you're him, as an example, I'd want to avoid this, if I had any talent. I'd want to avoid this. I don't want to be in the two-way pool. That salary's $500. Let's see. Two-way pool is think, is $567,000. I think that's what the two-way pool is. And I'm like, to me, that's. And 47's kind of in that two-way pool area.
So the last time you looked at that big board, or at least we talked about it, he wasn't even on it, correct?
Right. No. He wasn't at this going into the NBA G League Elite. He was not. So then he goes for the G League Elite and was terrific. Now, when I looked at the rosters, so they looked at the 4 rosters, I thought he had a chance to do really, really well because I thought all the center matchups for him were very favorable to him. Then he did some good things at the NBA Combine, but also he did some things where he came back down to earth a bit against the higher competition. So that's why he's in this, I think, in this gray area. And I don't know what his agent's saying to him. I don't know what the teams are saying to him. So I can't. Okay? Like Mackenzie Mbako, who had been at Indiana. Now, Mbako had put his name into the portal and then put his name into the draft. Okay? And he went through the process, was projected as a second-round pick, so he's going to transfer to Texas A&M. And just so everybody knows, Yannick will make his decision tomorrow. And the reason he'll make his decision tomorrow is if you want to maintain your college eligibility, you have to make your announcement before 11:59 tomorrow. Okay? So if it's 11:59 tomorrow, he'll announce one way or the other what he's doing.
I guess my point was to rocket up those boards like that in 3 weeks is pretty impressive, and I just wonder.
Yeah.
That makes me think maybe somebody has fallen in love with him. You know what I mean? Like that gets him eventually is a whole nother issue.
I mean, you fall in love with first-round picks.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. You roll the dice on second-round picks.
Or the guys you can stash somewhere for a couple of years with your second-round pick.
Right, and
he's not one of them.
And being in and because he's playing American college basketball, you can't stash him.
Yeah, which is
okay. If he was a foreign player, he's from Switzerland, but he's not playing in the Swiss league. They could have done a draft and stash, but they can't do that if he's playing college basketball.
It's also kind of interesting if that goes away too, because of the amount of Europeans coming over this season in college basketball is a little surprising.
Well, I think there's going to be 2 more coming to Penn State.
Well, they did at least announce one, didn't they?
They haven't announced. No.
Oh, I thought they announced the one.
No, they have not announced the one yet. No, they haven't announced either one yet.
But I mean, that's the route Illinois took, and somebody else as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, there's. I'll tell you what one of the pluses is of going after a European player that's 19, 18, 19, it's 19 years old. When you're out there playing, you're playing against men. You're not playing against you're not playing against 15, 16, and 17-year-olds. You're playing against older people. Well, guess what? In order to survive, you better get better.
Well, the other part of that is that they do a lot differently over there. Most of those kids that are good enough are moving away from their families at 14 and 15 to be on those junior teams for those pro teams as well.
Exactly. That's right. They're doing that. So again, we'll see tomorrow. He'll make his choice tomorrow, and we'll find out what it is and whatever it is. And Scott Pera is the general manager now for Penn State basketball. I'll be frank with you, I pretty much found out about this 8 weeks ago. So it's really, it's news in that it's out there officially, but
Let's see. Oh, maybe he's a little younger than that. I was going to say I think Scott was coaching high school basketball when Mike played at Lebanon Valley, but I think Scott's a little younger than that. I think Mike was already gone by the time.
Well, one of his claims of fame of coaching high school basketball is he had James Harden.
Yes.
Then of course he was at Rice with Mike, and then he's been out of the Rice job now for a year because Rob Lanier has been the head coach of Rice for the past year and a half. But GMs have different roles for different programs. And the football part of it, there are some GMs in football, college football, where they're picking the talent. They're doing it. Okay? They're running the show. Then there are other places, and Penn State's one of them, and this will be the same story with basketball. Hey, they'll help in the recruiting process. They'll help in the portal process, like identifying, finding people. Hey, Mike, you ought to be looking at this. Hey, James, you ought to be looking at this guy. Right? And that's what the staff does, and that's what the GM does. They identify as people that they think are the right fits, either in the portal or in recruiting, and they lay all the groundwork for everything that goes on in it. All right? In the end, the head coach, along with the staff, make the final decisions. But that's their job. And then the other part that's going to be important for, I think, anybody that's around here is the money distribution part. What's the revenue share look like? How do you then divide up the cash and have it add up to the number you've been provided by the university, which I always refer to as a capologist?
I was going to say, it kind of sounds like when Oklahoma hired the guy from the Senior Bowl, that's kind of his job. He seems to be the one that's pointing out guys for them to pick up.
Right. And in other words, you're in the strongly suggesting, hey, look, we're looking at this guy, this guy, this guy. Okay, let's look at the roster construction. Boy, we better make sure we pick up a little bit on the offensive line. We're going to be losing guys at this position. We got to make sure that, and you're not just talking about the upcoming season. You're trying to think 3 years ahead of time. Like, when you're recruiting, you're thinking 3 years ahead of time. When you're doing the portal, you're thinking now. So you have to have two different mindsets about what you're looking at in terms of immediate need versus down the road need.
I was going to say, in a perfect world, you're finding like Zach Bond-like guys that are sophomores, and all of a sudden, you create them into something as juniors and seniors.
Right. You hope that, and that's also part of the money element. Roster retention cash. Okay? So, in other words, if Yannick Konan-Niederhauser elects to come back to Penn State tomorrow, he's going to make money here. There'll be roster retention money for him. Right? If he opts for the NBA, he'll go pro, and that'll be it, and that money may go other places. Okay? Football, we talked about Drew Aller, Singleton, Allen, Shelton, Ioane, Dawkins, Dinkins, Denai Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, Wheatley, A.J. Harris, Elliott Washington, right? Well, one of the keys to keeping all those guys is roster retention money. And I know that when I go down to Pittsburgh in 2 weeks, they're doing that Fox Chapel event in Pittsburgh. Pat Fryermuth's going to be there. Brandon Short's going to be there. Chuck Fusina's going to be there. All right. But that's going to be one of the things I'm going to talk to people about. Like, this money is not just for, hey, let's go and, let's pay Caleb Downs $1.7 million. I mean, that's one of it, part of it. But a big part of it is when you're a developmental program like Penn State is, your ability to keep players on the roster and continue developing them until they get to their peak. Neil Coulon next half hour. We would add Matt Catrillo today. Catrillo has a game. I think it's a T-ball game in the backyard. And his kids are practicing the tush push, and one of them got wounded. No?
Doing his Joel Embiid impersonation.
Oh.
You're listening